What's up, guys? Let's talk trigger weight testing because I've seen a lot of videos of people using trigger scales on firearms and they're using them to the advantage of leverage. So, most firearms, like most people that shoot guns, when look, it's unloaded, but when they shoot firearms, their trigger finger typically is in the middle of the trigger where it should be. You know, where it's most comfortable. They're not down here on the bottom, they're not up here on top, like up against the frame or anything. And they're like kind of right here in the middle, right? So that would be a normal trigger finger placement as far as how you're pulling the trigger. Now, when it comes to testing, I've seen testers like go all the way down here at the bottom to do their trigger pull test, and they're basically showing that the trigger pull is actually, when you do that you get more leverage. And so I'm just kind of going to kind of demonstrate that here with it on the bottom. So it broke just under 4 pounds on that one. Of course, this is my SIG 320x10 and 10 millimeter. Yeah, same spot, just under 4 pounds, if that'll focus. So yeah, just right there under 4 pounds. Now, which 4 pounds for a stock pistol is good, and the trigger that SIG puts in their 320s is pretty good trigger compared to like a Glock or something. Because I've had a Glock 20 and a Glock 40, and their triggers are kind of, eh. But if I do it right in the middle where your finger pad normally is, now we're breaking the trigger over 5.5 pounds, or around 5.5 pounds. Yeah, same spot, or a little over that time, almost 6 pounds there, right where your trigger finger actually goes, where most people actually fire their guns from, with their finger pad in the middle. Now, if I were to hold it down here on the bottom of the frame and pull it, I've got more leverage because this lever arm, which is the trigger, is longer. I'm engaging it at a longer distance away from the pin and everything, the action, the fulcrum point in the firearm. And the same thing, if I were to try to pull it from the very top up here, it would be even heavier than that. It'd be much heavier. But I just kind of wanted to show that because there's some people out there, they'll show videos doing trigger weight testing after they've put, aftermarket triggers or whatever, this and that in a firearm. These match grade light triggers, and they're kind of misrepresenting what the trigger is actually doing because they're testing it from this bottom point down here. And so it's resulting in a readout on the scale that's lower than what the actual trigger pull is. So the factory trigger pull on this gun is really almost 6 pounds. It's like 6.5 or 5.5 to 5 3/4, maybe a little more. Uh, you know, and if you really put it down there on the bottom, we can get it under 4 pounds. So we can argue that the trigger it's got a pretty light trigger in it for a handgun, for a factory stock handgun. But it all comes into your method of testing, and if you're testing it the wrong way, because I don't think I know anybody that sits down here and pulls on the bottom of that trigger. That's just not how we shoot guns. It's in the middle, and that's usually like where that pad on your finger goes, is in the middle when you shoot. So that's how much trigger weight you're really getting. So I'm really pulling on this particular firearm at about 5 3/4 to 6 pounds on it. And, you could argue and place that tester at any other point up and down the face of that trigger and get a different pull weight. So I just kind of wanted to bring that to light and show people that some of these aftermarket trigger companies and stuff that have videos out there showing that their pull weight's lighter and everything else, um, they may not even be testing it correctly, and I think they probably know that, but to really correctly test a trigger weight for you and your hand and the way you shoot your gun, you need to test it exactly where you place the pad of your finger on the face of that trigger.